Is that next? Haven't missed anything. Item 32 is the one to which a whole lot of delegations. Do you want to come and talk to us? You had a whole lot of delegations on this morning. What I would suggest, there were a range of issues covered, and there have been a range of issues covered in the report here, and then there are a huge number of others. Can I suggest when you want to raise something that you tell us exactly what it is, and we first of all flag the issues that we want to discuss? Otherwise, my hunch is on this one we could be here till tomorrow. So if you want to raise something, first I'll allow you to ask any questions about anything, and then if you want to raise any question, like for example the car park in Morehouse Ave or the cycleway in Selwyn Street or whatever, please just flag what it is and we'll identify the issues that are up for debate before we go into a general debate. Okay? Are there any questions on this? Andrew, then Jimmy, then Yanni.
Just a high-level question to start us off. To what extent is there work in these first phase transport projects which has a bearing on work that could happen in the second phase of an accessible city? Is there anything that we are deciding on today that we would decide differently if phase two were not to proceed as planned?
So in terms of the overall program for an accessible city, there is a huge amount of work that's anticipated to deliver the whole chapter, if you like. And certainly that's something that we envisaged occurring over a number of years if council were of a mind to approve it and fund it. The first phase transport projects, as you're aware, account for some $70-odd million, and they have specifically been approved by council earlier on this year because they support key anchor projects or early anchor projects. So in terms of whether if the phases beyond that, which are subject to what we call a business case process through which we seek funding from Treasury and the Crown, if the phases 2, 3 and 4, which sit beyond the first phase projects, were not to proceed because they weren't funded by the Crown or by council, these projects here would stand on their own merit.
Two questions. First one, I reviewed the 4.41, the page 338. Even the St. John, have pointed out if the timing is critical, so ambulance can travel from the north to access the hospital through Rolleston Avenue, but through southeast, they mentioned no any problem. However, my understanding, the community, elderly people, etc., resident group, they're concerned if their ambulance pass through the Lincoln Road, a moment Hagley the Avenue, they can turn left, shortcut to the hospital. If go straight ahead to the Montreal, then to U-turn to the Tune Street, then turn right to the hospital. Because ambulance, we are all aware, the patient's probably is emergency case. So where is the shortcut? All those ambulance can from south to access to the hospital.
Through you, Madam Chair, we've had further discussions with St John's Ambulance and the District Health Board over those ambulance access times to and from the hospital. The journeys from the southwest are slightly longer in distance, but what these projects offer us is more journey reliability at those key intersections. So for most of the journeys, from St John's point of view, those are more reliable journeys to and from the hospital. So they were quite understandable concerns about the effects of these schemes on their ambulance response times, but I think we've satisfied them that this overall package of proposals based upon the future increases in traffic to and from the central city are actually the best balance in order for them to deliver their services.
Because if we review the car accidents, especially the kind of the separate pedestrian, the facility, and also the carriage, facility, quite a few the accident is the when the motor vehicle left turn, they was unaware the pedestrian will have a crossing, etc. So quite a few of this kind of case. So I'm wondering in this, the kind of the new facility have any the kind of early stage, the kind of green light for cyclists?
I think from the point of view of does the scheme improve conditions for cyclists and improve cycle safety? Yes, we believe it makes a significant contribution to cycle safety. For the first time, you have a controlled crossing of Morehouse Avenue to that key cycle route through the park, which we understand is a matter for debate for council today. And that links to the Little River cycle trail, which is one of the early priorities, as I understand it, from council for the major cycle routes programme. So we do believe that offers a good level of amenity and safety improvement for cyclists, and why we're proposing it as an early scheme for the programme.
So, just given what we now know about the optimisation of the roads that won't be fixed, and I'm not sure you've seen this map that we've been given. So you can see all the red. Is it still your view that this should be a priority, given our current financial constraints, and given that we've got levels of service on our roads that have have serious impacts if they're not fixed in the short term? Well, sorry.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. A number of submitters raised this.
Yeah, but it's a financial issue.
Accessible city is around betterment and growth and the recovery of the central city, around the redevelopment of it. The repair and skirt programme is a different issue, and so my answer to your question is yes, I do believe it's the right scheme.
Cool. Just to say that there were a number of submitters on that point. Yeah, the question is, given the concerns that we've heard about the designs and the concerns that have been raised around the traffic effects, can you is there a possibility that we could look at a new design that would try and deal with these concerns that have been raised today, and also possibly wait, given that my understanding is the second stage business case is likely to go through government probably by the end of the year? So could we delay or defer this until we had certainty around the $200 million that's currently not budgeted that goes into the transport plan, so we know where the priorities are, and to enable a better, more comprehensive look at the design given the concerns that have been expressed?
If I can just make a brief comment in terms of priority, we did go through a prioritisation process, and we brought that back to council in May, and council approved the reprioritised projects. And as I mentioned earlier on, they're essentially there to support those early anchor projects. So this one's really, the TP1 going through Hospital Corner, that's really there to ensure the buses can get to the interchange and they gets the green wave. That on its own doesn't work unless you throttle off the traffic coming through from Morehouse Ave into Hagley Ave. So that really makes it a lot more pleasant place and a lot less traffic going past the hospital itself, and enables the buses free movement as well as a better space for the pedestrians. So I think we've been through that, and certainly the wider Better Business case, which is in draft at the moment and we want to report to council in early December, has been through a process of going through every project that would sit within an accessible city, and it reconfirms that these ones that we've got in there are the priorities. So we're pretty comfortable from a technical perspective that we've got that right. As to whether they're going to be funded, that's another question.
And as far as the design and the traffic effects are concerned, our latest modelling for the area is indicating to us that without this package of changes before council today, we would expect to see something in the region of 41,000 vehicles a day around Hospital Corner in that area. This package of proposals reduces that to 28,000 vehicles a day. So this is a significant reduction in the traffic pressures around Hospital Corner and linked up, of course, with the Avon River Precinct and Oxford Terrace. So without these proposals, in the shape that they are, we believe those key principles of anchor projects and the hospital redevelopment would not be able to go ahead to the same degree that we believe they now can.
Thank you. My question's about what seems like a minor point for us, but major for these property owners who came in before with that deputation about one parking lot. Strikes me that's a reasonable request to not have that. They've offered a compromise monitoring that left turning lane until such time as it may be.
Yeah, we've had a bit of a chat about that, and I think we do have a solution potentially which the council might like to consider. We don't necessarily agree with what they proposed in terms of leaving it, basically leaving the car parking space there forever and monitoring it. Do you want to speak to that?
Perhaps through you, Madam Chair, we ought to explain a little more about why we were proposing to remove that parking space there. If it stays, we've only got about a 21-metre left turn into Selwyn Street there. In a week's time, Environment Canterbury will change their bus routes into and out of the central city. And so that left turn will become a major bus turn into the central city. And so our reason for seeking the removal of that parking space there is the likelihood of one left-turning bus plus more than one vehicle at any given moment wishing to turn left into Selwyn Street. Once we get more than one vehicle tagging along behind a bus, and that could be one vehicle with a trailer on the back, for instance, the second vehicle would start to jut out into the ahead traffic lane. And so we perfectly understand the submission this morning and why that's a difficulty for those business owners there. So our recommendation to council, based on that submission this morning, is that we monitor the operation and the safety of the new intersection after the bus route change for, say, 3 months, and we report back to council in March or April of next year on a safety and an operational review of that, plus the parking along that north side block between Hagley Avenue and Selwyn Street.
I think if we just show people the information, they come to their own conclusions themselves. So, yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure and be clear, 4.12, page 333, that relates to all of the issues and concerns that people have had about the emergency vehicles, particularly St John and the hospital, right down to the number of seconds that are increased with the journeys because of the proposed changes, yes?
Yes, I mean, it is very difficult for us to be absolutely precise about journey times in future years.
But that's pretty indicative.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Her deputation referred to the need, say, for people who are visually impaired for some tapping rails, I think she called them. I'm just wondering, can they still be included in the plan?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, absolutely. There is no problem at all in including those in the designs for Hospital Corner, and as the Blind Foundation would request them at other crossing points there. In fact, Council's just introduced that very arrangement just down near South City Mall. The street that comes off Durham Street South, that went in last week. So there is a tapping rail there with that tactile paving. So that's part of our standard.
Thanks, Tim. And my other question really relates to the submission by Hands Off Hagley, where they suggested that in fact the cycle lane be adjacent to the street, to Hagley Avenue. And I know in the memorandum which you've sent to, I think, all councillors, you've, besides the arborist report, you've referred to some I guess, options regarding how, in fact, the cycle lane through the park might be. I just wondered if you could perhaps explain the advantages and disadvantages of those options.
Madam Chair, just in terms of, councillors may not all have that memo in front of them, but I do have basically a handout which just has photographs of what the shared path might look like, if you'd like me to circulate that to councillors just quickly.
What's in?
Yeah, I've got it? Yep. Okay. All right. Sorry.
Didn't bring the papers.
Through you, Madam Chair, and as the memorandum discusses, it looked at three forms of achieving that level of shared use of a pathway there. So that was a 4 metre wide unsegregated path, then a 4 metre wide path segregated by line effectively between cyclists and pedestrians. And then the third option, which is the subject also of the arborist's report, you'll note, was the idea of an overall 6 metre wide facility, but separated by a 1 metre grass verge between a separate cycle and pedestrian path. Officers' recommendations were the unsegregated facility, and within the memorandum and the further memorandum to council, we've outlined some of the signing and control arrangements that might achieve the behaviours that we would wish for there, and were outlined by Dr. Corey this morning on behalf of Spokes. And they were really measures around guiding people to good behaviour, to stay left on the path, to leave the path when you're pausing, which of course is what all council vehicles do, for instance, when they're there, to guide speeds there, and that's been developed by Nelson City Council recently around the use of their shared pathways. So our overall view as officers is that we believe an unsegregated facility probably offers the best balance of advantage in delivering a shared path there compatible with the unique path environment. It doesn't require as much signing and marking. So our approach there is to recommend those behaviours there, and so does that answer the question?
The cycleway be adjacent to the road. You're not. You don't recommend that.
We don't favour that, and in fact, get right back to the accessible city document. That was quite clear that the path through Hagley Park was intended to be that route there, not within the roadway.
Thank you.
I don't recall ever discussing the suggestion that we actually use the footpath as the cycleway, and that was suggested this morning, and then use the park walkway as the walkway. Because I know that we couldn't use the roadway because we got into trouble down towards Riccarton Ave and St Asaph.
Yes.
I think one of the key things, if we were to use the footpath, so if council were of a mind to approve it and we had angled parking next to the netball courts, which would obviously increase the number of parking there, the concern would be the conflict between people hopping out of their car and cyclists going down that footpath, if that's what you're referring to. So that there is greater potential for conflict. So that would raise safety issues for us, and that wouldn't be something that we'd recommend.
Yes.
Mine's a double-barrel question, so the first question will lead into the second question. So the first question is, we're shutting down a major vehicular access route into the central city. Now, I can understand so to actually drop off the traffic around Hospital Corner. With that in mind, that's going to push traffic out into the Avs. We've got the eastern side, which is having some roads shut down into the central city. And I just want to know the long-term aspiration of the planning department on, are you planning on also shutting down access routes off Beeley Ave, further access routes off Morehouse Ave to restrict that traffic flow into the central city?
Through you, Madam Chair. The plan contains proposals to improve the efficiency of the avenues so that they're in a better state to be fit for purpose to carry the strategic traffic around the outside of the central city. They are the highest functioning roads in the central city, and so the programme business case, which Richard's just referred to, is variously looking at what stage we would then need to address further enhancements to the efficiency of the avenues. Now, in broad order, that would be about, just as with the Hagley-Lincoln-Moorhouse intersection, greater use of the main distributor streets into and out of the central city. So in other words, focusing the traffic efficiency and signals at those, and potential measures within those, therefore, to actually discourage traffic usage in and out of town by the less traffic function streets, as it were, in the central city. So at the time that we got to those further measures within hopefully further phases of this work, then at that time that would be the stage for us to consult in detail, just as we have done, over those individual changes. But that is the broad strategy, to make best use of the avenues for efficient traffic movements and to then direct traffic into and out of the central city by the main distributors, which are the blue streets.
I take it then you will be looking at closing off more streets. So,
not closing, but we may well be looking at efficiency enhancements at individual intersections, yes.
okay. The next question is that you're talking about these massive increase of traffic by the year 2041. Will the ABS cope, because they're not actually coping that well at the moment, will they actually cope with the future traffic needs in the future for the private motor vehicle? And are you looking at applying the same rules as you're applying to the central city, which is a key activity centre, to other key activity centres? Just take Riccarton Road, for example, where major traffic congestion. So I'm just trying to see where the future holds for traffic in the city. Well, so first of all, the Moorhouse Ave and Beeley Ave, are they going to better
So
contain?
we're tackling Moorhouse Avenue, obviously part of it through this scheme. There is another project in the first phase programme, and that is for the enhancement of Fitzgerald Avenue at the twin bridges there. So that is an enhancement to the capacity of that intersection there, and also reintroduces the right turn there from the north into Kilmore Street for buses. And the overall plan for bus movements in the central city is completely linked with corridors such as Riccarton, where it is dovetailed in with the idea of the corridor in from the west being a priority route for buses in from the west. So the central city traffic plan very much is dovetailed into the Christchurch Transport Strategic Plan, which Council approved some 18 months ago, and so these proposals you have before you today are completely consistent with that plan. And as far as this particular project for Hagley-Lincoln-Moorhouse is concerned, that is also dovetailed in with our corridor study for Lincoln Road. We have huge traffic problems, as everyone's aware, through Addington, and so this is the bottleneck on the Addington Road, Lincoln Road corridor, and so whatever we do further south down Hallswell Road and Lincoln Road, it does variously dovetail in with our need to deal with this very complex intersection at the northern end.
I think in a nutshell you can make improvements to the efficiency of the avenues without closing off access to the central city, Paul, if that's what you're worried about. Because so there's stuff we can do in there to make those intersections operate more efficiently, to get more traffic through them, and it's not about closing off roads to the central city.
That's great. I mean, my concern is accessible city rather than inaccessible city.
It's a tailor-made solution for this intersection, which is 5 arms at the moment. We're proposing to reduce it to 3. All the others may be different. The solutions to those may be very different.
And this, as Tim said, it's tailor-made for this one, and you know that Hagley-Moorhouse intersection at the moment is not a very pleasant one to go through. It's not a nice experience, and I wouldn't say it's the safest one that we've got in the city at all. So this will improve the safety of it. So, but it's specific to that one, and I wouldn't expect that to necessarily be rolled out anywhere else.
And just to finish on that, it's the 5th most congested intersection citywide at the moment with these proposals. Even with the projected increase in traffic flows there, we lift that right out of the top 10 intersections. It drops to about 16th or 17th in the list. So this is a significant improvement to its efficiency.
Ray Edwards, representing the owners and operators of 23 to 51 Moyas Ave, the single car park. You've come up with a solution, and thank you for that, because I'm very much supportive of keeping it, because I know how this can affect a business not having that type of car park, especially car sales where people expect to be jumped on and harangued. I've got an idea as well, but I'll talk to both of you afterwards or at some convenient time about that, so I'm not wasting everybody's time. So there's a question. Second one is,